Okay, we can start. So you guys are also hearing us in the actually physical room, hopefully, and online. That's nice. So welcome to our talk. The strategic answer to GenAI is empirical enterprise evolution. And um, yeah, we try to have access to the Discord channel. So if you have questions, uh, yeah, raise your questions. We try to answer them at the end of the talk, maybe also in between. So Andreas is here, my colleague, and we'll have a look to it. Um, and we also provide from the slide deck, which is on Miro, actually a Japanese version, which is of course auto-translated with large language model. So maybe not a perfect translation, but hopefully helping for you guys too. So otherwise, you of course can also follow us on the Miro board here, and you see the link here. Good. So what is it? What are the takeaways we hope you can get here from our talk? First, after this talk, you hopefully can assess and anticipate in advance with your trajectory for GenAI, which is actually more or less our agenda for today. So how to assess, anticipate, and advance with GenAI in your company using AIM-3, which is in what is M3, and 3 stands for Adaptive Meta Framework for Empirical Enterprise Evolution. And actually, this meta framework stands on the giants, on the shoulder of giants like Scrum, Kanban, and body mapping. I'm just wondering if maybe everyone can follow. Is everything fine? I'm not sure.
すみません。ちょっと音声が聞こえてないので、
I see some
ちょっ
faces which
と
are
一旦止
wondering.
めていただいて、ちょっと機材の確認をさせてください。で、その後、こちらから合図を行うので、もう一回セッションをリスタートしていただきたいんですが。はい、聞こえてます。
パッドから音が出ちゃってて、会場のスピーカーから出てないですね。
So should I continue? Is everything okay?
No, please stop your session and guys, both of you have to enter the interpretation mode in the Zoom.
Okay. So you give us just a thumbs up when I should continue.
Yeah, and if you enter the English channel, we can hear your voice in the venue.
So I have to change the channel, or
ちょっと待って。そう。で、今、英語チャンネルに帰れてないみたいなんで、これ、英語で変えるの難しいな。いや、通訳さん。
川口です。何を伝えたらいいですか？聞こえてないか。
これテイクオフしたら、とりあえずやっておこうかっていう感じなんですけど、
何がどうなってるかわかんないな。
ちょっと川口さん、会場来れます？誰か。
今、
英語能力が低すぎて。
今、ズームに入ってるんで言ってくれれば、何を伝えればいいですか？
通訳さんからは2人が英語チャンネルに入ってないっていうふうに来てる。
ピーター・ベックが通訳チャンネルに入ってないってことでしょ？それを伝えればいいんですよ。OK。それで合ってる？了解です。 Hi, Peter. Sorry. So we need to have the interpretation channel in Zoom channel, Zoom menu. There is interpretation menu. Could you find out?
Yeah, interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah. So please set the English.
Okay. I switch to English,
Yeah. Yes. It is.
and this is now better for you guys.
やってみるか。
はい。Yeah. I think it's okay. どうです
Okay,
かね?
so we are good to go or good to continue?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Let's check. Yeah. Let's check. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just continue, and otherwise
Yeah.
you just
This
drop in.
yeah.
See. Okay. Great. Good.
Perfect. Please.
So actually, where was I? I was talking about AIM3 actually, what the meaning is of AIM3. So adaptive meta framework for empirical enterprise evolution. And the idea of this meta framework is that it's actually standing on the shoulders of fundamental work like Scrum, Kanban, or Worldly mapping. So other frameworks and methods, which again are standing on the shoulders of the work of Deming, Takeuchi, or Nonaka. So actually, I'm Peter Beck, and I'm here with my friend Andreas Schliep, which is ringing here, and we both developed AIM3 together. And our personal goal actually was to bring the Scrum value to the entire enterprise. So we have a history together since 2003 when we first applied Scrum, and we have been working together since then. Before that, we both had some experience, or we had experience, not some experience in software development and also already in AI approaches. But our experiments were far from what we understood or understand as generative AI today, even if the foundations are somehow the same. So just looking to the numbers, so my experiments back in 95 with Beck propagation algorithm, I had a network of round about 100 parameters, and 2020 when JetGPT was announced, has had 175 billion parameters. So it's a huge difference, of course, even if the algorithm or the basic structures are simply the same. However, our experiments were very disappointed, or my experiments, and more or less for academic work. I don't know, Andreas, what your experience was, experiments you might like to talk about that.
Well, I was just playing around with some neural networks during my studies, actually coding one of them and training it. And I remember printing out the training data on paper, which was like a whole bunch of paper of numbers that didn't tell me anything. So,
excuse me.
Yeah, this is more or less the same experiment for me. However, the concepts are pretty much the same. And an interesting part here is, why had GenAI no impact for a long time? And this was because it was constraining. And which leads us to our first advice when we build a strategy for GenAI.
Peter, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so sorry. It's so the revenue side is some problem, technical problem. Your voice does not do the work in the mic, so please wait a moment.
Okay.
Now it's so the revenue side is so we cannot hear your presentation.
ちょっと待って、何が起こってますか？
音が、会場に出てこない。
会場の iPad を、英語モードにしてください。
会場の iPad を英語モード。
通訳モードを英語にしてください。
今やってみます。ちょっと待ってください。
Wait a moment, please. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry. Please set all guys the interpretation mode into the English. Thank you.
Yeah,
ちょっと今起きてるのは、 会場の音声出し用の iPad から音声の出力がうまくできてないということですね。
はい。少々お待ちくださいませ。音声出しの iPad は今、イングリッシュモードにしていますか？
やります。
それで出ない感じ。あ、
で、iPad から直接音声が出ちゃってるんで、LINE アウトから出てない感じ。
Okay. The situation is very easy. Just the device problem. Ordinarily, we get put the iPad to the floor speaker, but our device is not working now. So the iPad directly speaks something. So
Yeah,
please wait a moment. Just 1 or 2 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Wait a
fine,
moment.
we are waiting.
Thank you so much.
Andy, you will have to add something.
Yeah, maybe I don't know, because we're running out of time and getting closer to the next session. Maybe
Yeah.
try to reschedule, and if you have a free slot.
Which is also fine for us.
Now we see the technology
Which is also interesting
directly.
for us.
Technique.
What is that?
So
So Andy, is it
Yeah,
correct? So talk is over at 6:45. So we have more or less just.
Sorry. 松本さん、ちょっと状況を確認し教えてもらってもいいですか？聞こえます？
今、会場から音声出るようになりました。通訳チャンネルも動いているので、
OK。じゃあもう一回やってもらえばいいですか？
問題解決できたと思います。
OK, problem solved. Yeah, please continue. Thank you so much.
Okay, so just for us as info, so how long is the talk now for us? 30 minutes left?
10 minutes over is okay. Yeah. 10 minutes over.
Okay.
30 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Good. So let's continue. Where was I? Again, I was talking about the constraints, or first advice to develop a strategy is to develop a strategy, you need to understand the constraints of your system, which is a very general approach, of course. And when you look to GenAI, has and have still its constraints. So the first one is computing power, which is again constrained by energy. When you see how many energy we are now putting into computing infrastructure for GenAI, you see this big change. And the other constraint is data, which is often constrained by regulation or closed stores, or just of the amount and the structure of the data. So one reason why we see such huge progress on GenAI applications in coding is simply the data source code is very easily to access and has a great structure to learn these models. And finally, methods, algorithm, knowledge, how to train, how to build these models also is something constraining. So this has changed dramatically in the recent years, and was one reason why we leapt forward here. So whenever one of or many of these constraints in your system is lowering or falling away, we see a big leap forward in evolution of technologies, products and services. And this is what's happening right now with GenAI. This has happened before with other technologies, and we will see that also in the future. It is easy to see in the numbers, just the estimated. So when we look to the numbers here, so we see this potential impact on our business and economy, and you probably yeah, I don't need to explain that to you. So two interesting numbers are here. So first, the estimated investment in GenAI for 2026 is around $7 billion, which is a huge number, of course. But also, the numbers are showing us that 70 to 95% of all GenAI projects are failing. If you compare it to a very traditional business environment like automotive, where you have also a huge investment in new products, but you can expect that the projects are not failing in this high rate at the moment. So there's a huge shift here in the market. So many are comparing this GenAI revolution with the internet revolution back in the 90s and are already warning for a stock market bubble. But anyway, so probably is not the same. You probably are in a more traditional business or established business with your company. And you, of course, ask now the question, so what are new chances and challenges coming up with GenAI? And this talk is, of course, for you to find out what you have changed or what should your strategy to deal with them. What we can say, of course, that since we have this huge change right now, we need to adapt and to establish our strategy even faster, also in these traditional business environments. So, and it is safe to say is that a strategy is not just to create a plan for something. So your strategy needs to be adaptable, and that is why we provide this in three fundamental strategic doctrines. So what is a strategic doctrine? Think about for like a principle which is actually guiding you or guiding your enterprise in making decisions in the future. So it helps, our doctrine, a strategic doctrine helps to as a framework for your tactics and decisions, and also policies and to guide your operations. And three requires your enterprise to establish the three strategic doctrines right from the start. The first one is empirical control, then overall optimization and evolution focus. We will look to them soon. And yeah, let's start directly with the first one, which is empirical control, which is something we stood right now, or we should establish pretty soon in our organization, simply because GenAI projects are failing. Failure rate is so high, and you as Scrum guide or Scrum people, you know this doctrine pretty well. So Ken Schwaber was called it empirical process control, with the three fundamental pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And other areas or other methods, we know that as, for example, OODA loop or PDCA loop, or even Wardley mapping. So we see these empirical process loops in many approaches, and actually in the scientific area, empirical approaches are known since the 17th century. So it's not something new. It's something which we always a pattern we always see, and it is extremely important to establish that for developing your strategy on the overall enterprise level. So the first step to step in is when you create your strategy, is start to assess the landscape of the system you are in right now. So when we talk about system or landscape here, we mean of your business and business environment, which is probably changing due to generative GenAI. And as M3 is a meta framework, we use also here a very well documented, understood method which is Wortley mapping, developed by Simon Wortley and of course named after him. Here it is how that is working. Yeah? As already mentioned, the development of GenAI looks a bit like the internet and web revolution in the past. So I'm using here this history as an example to explain it a bit how we can deal with this environment. So the internet web revolution started somewhere in the past in its genesis and custom emerging phase by an idea of Tim Berners-Lee at the CERN in Geneva, which he developed the first text-based browser. And we talk here about the genesis and concept phase. Most of you probably remember Mosaic or Netscape, which is already when web technologies come to the custom emerging and product converging phase. So we started these first time these new products, but many of you don't remember these products anymore. Then we came into the internet war or the browser war, most famously with the Windows Internet Explorer. And what remaining today is fundamental components we called web engines like Gecko, WebKit, or Chromium. And Chromium probably is one of the most used web engines. And I'm using Miro here, for example, as my presentation tool, which is based on Electron, which again is based on Chromium. And we can say today, after these many years, that nearly every business is somehow depending on web technologies and one of these fundamental web engines. And probably with GenAI and all these models we see today, we will see a similar evolution. So maybe our language models or large language models will become something like web engines in the future. And nobody's really taking care of that they're really existing. They're just there. They're commodities and hopefully open source, at least partly open source. And they are for the building the fundamental or the background or for all these new services which we developing right now and we will see in the future. And this also might mean that we in a couple of years we can't remember famous names now in this GenAI business like OpenAI. Maybe OpenAI will be something like Netscape and just a note in the history, but maybe it will one of the big players in the future. We don't know. So there's a lot of movements and changing. And with such kind of map, we of course can understand better what is the situation right now, where we are in right now. But as a rule of thumb is that evolution is always moving forward because of the competition in the market. And we never go back. And yeah, we can't really compare, of course, history with what happened today. So correlation is not causation. Just because it's what's happening with the internet revolution in that way, we may see a complete different development here. But for assessing the landscape, these kind of maps or these looking to the evolution is a very helpful way to understand the situation you are in, which comes to our second step in developing a strategy is to anticipate the evolution to derive the next strategic goals. Yeah, so focusing on evolution is even more important than focusing on agile, which is something I need to say here at a Scrum gathering, and something which is also difficult for me as a Scrum guy because I love agile. But the problem in the past, what we saw is that different parts of our system, work system, and meaning product, service, and the organization itself require different optimization goals. So an evolution-based approach helps to understand the best balance between the focus you need. So when you have parts of your system and your product which are on the genesis area, so this is a green curve here, so you might like to focus more on agility and the ability to respond. But you also have in your product and service landscape parts which are on the product converging on the commodity side. And so you need to focus more on efficiency and flow and stability. And yeah, most businesses are somewhere in the middle. So typical product development is something here. So means we need actually to balance both the agility and efficiency at the same time. So when you want to scale your product, which is utilizing GenAI, you need to come to focus from agile, means experimenting with your market, to efficiency and stability that you really can scale in a market. So this is actually the interesting part, and is of course a huge challenge to bring those things together, and that's why we say so. Instead of just focusing to agility or efficiency, focus on evolution, which tells you more about where you have to head to in the future. Okay, since we're here to talk about GenAI, let's have a look to a Worldly map and to analyze or to understand our GenAI market. And maybe this is already helpful for us to make some good decisions for our strategy. So I created here a Worldly map here. And this is, of course, the GenAI market, how I understand it, which is typically when you work with such kind of maps, that, of course, you just reduce to or to simplify the situation. Yeah. And on the top of this map, you see the value chain here. We see that in the customer understanding or the customer wish are already here more in a converting phase. So we already see that customers understand what they want to have from GenAI. So writing, knowledge, reasoning, translation service. Customers can now express what they're expecting from GenAI services. We've probably seen more business ideas here on the left side, highly probably, but we already have a market. So in the middle area, we can see that especially these big tech companies are pushing very hard or creating a lot of pressure in making or creating commodity services. Still, my feeling a bit early because many of these services will disappear again, but it is easy to understand, of course. The goal is to become or to control a higher level services by establishing these models and services or large language models, and those which are first in the market have, of course, the control over the emerging market. So in the same way as Google is still controlling Chromium as web engine. And if you have a look very deep into the value chain, we see this typical pattern when we have a gold rush. Actually, those which are selling the shovels are making the money. So when we had the gold rush in San Francisco in the 19th century, so suppliers like Levi's were really the businesses which really makes the money. So selling the jeans or the trousers to the guys really working in the gold mines was the best business you could have. Same way, NVIDIA say selling the GPUs and all the cloud service providers, and of course all these top GenAI companies like OpenAI are heavily depending on them. This is, of course, a business model which maybe last not too long. Highly probably we get here competitors soon which offering better service or cheaper service the same way as we can buy blue jeans now everywhere. And this is a standard a commodity product. But for now, it is definitely a good business. So what is the problem with this map here? First of all, this map is missing a lot of key practices, tools, models, and players in the market. Second, your customers and product and service are completely missing. And I also miss here entire industries like medicine, agriculture, robotics. So to derive your own company-specific strategy, this map is too generic. So probably don't help you. It's interesting to see what is the market, but to really derive your strategy, you need to ask more specific questions and go deeper and model the situation according to your own questions, which you are in your business. To help you to find the right questions, we have created a map of questions which might be helping you to guide to which direction you like to go when you talk about your strategy in your company. So here's some examples. One question might be that you asked yourself, how to become more efficient in the future, which is a typical question you ask or most companies ask right now. Since we are starting with the customers, the better questions might be, what are typical, I need to move in here. Give a second here. What do our customers expect now? For example, better prices, better services in the future, and we can probably provide in the future with improved processes by GenAI. So one next question might be that you ask, okay, what can our supplier offer already? So maybe you have an ERP system and your ERP supplier can offer you new services based on GenAI, which is, on the other hand, hardening your dependencies. So might be also a good question to see, okay, maybe there are alternatives to that. So you don't have more, you increase your dependencies. If you go deeper into the value chain, you may like to ask questions about, so how can we make our data ready for GenAI? Maybe this is a reason for that they are not ready because that the data is regulated by government rules or something else. Yeah? And finally, what are the maybe interesting question here is what does your employees need to learn, or what skills you need that you can move on with GenAI. Here's an example of an automotive supplier, and which is actually a German automotive supplier. So this map is in German, but we won't look to the details anyway. So it's just to give you a rough understanding how to map the duration here. The challenge here, what the supplier had was they were looking to improve their sales and ordering process, and were trying to understand where they can make this process more efficient with GenAI. And here's what I learned from them by doing this mapping, and I hope also they learned something about that. First of all, the data quality and availability was very critical and fundamental to that initiative. Many of these data was not owned by themselves, so they already were in suppliers' systems and not easy to access. And other parts were just distributed all over everywhere in the organization and not easy to access, which is also very typical when you start with an GenAI initiative. Also, this mapping process has revealed hidden dependencies they were not aware of. For example, as I mentioned, to these supplying component like the ERP system. And another very important conclusion here in this process was that they were very much focusing on the efficiency, and which on the other side were held them back to asking questions about new services they can offer in the future, because they had a lot of data and they have a lot of knowledge in that market. And the real maybe interesting questions would be, what could be new customer services which they now can provide directly with the possibility of GenAI. But this question was not raised, and also not in this process, which is I feel a bit sorry that they didn't do that, because I see a lot of potential here. So anyway, I like to show this example because what we saw is that many organizations at the moment are really just asking, so how we can more efficient with our existing process and business, instead of asking, okay, what can we provide maybe new services to the market, since we have now this possibility with GenAI. Another example is this one here. I don't want to that question again, but it is actually an example from our own company, the Scrum team. And Andreas, do you like to talk about that one? Which is a bit unfair because I created the map and you have to talk about it.
Yeah, I've been through this, but this is just an example. Our company faced some problems during the past years, like many companies did. And so some of these problems actually were related to the situation of the world. Some of these problems were related to the evolution of Scrum training and the evolution of knowledge about. So if knowledge spreads more openly, then less people will need fundamental training. And of course, new technology is coming up and disrupting the whole market. So in order to get to our strategy, we try to, well, of course, focus on our customers and what they need, and what they probably will need in the future, but also on the general landscape of what's happening in the world and in the AI market and the training market, of course. So in short, we recognize that the crisis or the threat is also a chance. So well, there's one thing that we kind of agreed upon when we started the company, and it's the Scrum cycle. It's the empirical process. And in Scrum, we call it provide transparency, inspect, and adapt. And with AIM, we formulated just in a new way. And by this cycle, we said that actually, at one point of time, we might even try to create something completely new. And this is a consequence of really observing what's going on the whole landscape and adapting our strategy depending on those elements. So AI might kill the trainer job. AI might kill lots of things in the industry as we know them. But on the other hand, AI is a currently main supporter of how we work on our learning platform, on how we design our courses, and also what topics we integrate. So all based on kind of an overall understanding of what we are working on.
Yeah. And one business decision for us, of course, is we are not really interested in this part here. So our business goal is to stay small and become famous, and this is why we personally have more interest in investing future in Genesis and custom emerging concepts, which is, by the way, the reason why we talk here about AIM3, which is something new and emerging right now, and this is our business focus. And
Yep.
so yeah, we are here in the Scrum gathering, and obviously we are yeah, of course, a little bit behind now with the time. And you may ask when you hear all these talks about GenAI and agentic coding and vibe programming, do we need development teams anymore if we have now AI agents? We have you heard a lot of these, and of course there's a lot this discussion, and might be also very important strategic decision for now. So for all of you like me and Andy, which are already also programmers, it is very fascinating, of course, using a large language model, and just by talking to that model, creating code. And by programming actually means yeah, coding without looking into the code, and this is possible. Even of course, there are still some critics on that, but this is really fascinating. So we ask, of course, this question, in the future, do we just need very experienced developers? And we don't need these junior developers anymore because we can replace them by GenAI? Or maybe the other way around, because what I'm showing here with that slides is an experiment I oversaw with my daughter. She's a designer, never touched any code before, and she was just producing a Mac app in just into 2 weeks. Yeah, as I said, without any coding experience before. So, so it's hard to say how that's developed. But to bring us to our last part of our journey to create a sustainable strategy for GenAI, which is actually how can we advance, or how we advance our strategy with arenas and teams. And to keep that short, we believe that teams will still exist even with GenAI revolution. We even believe that it will become more important to work in teams, simply because there is a pattern we see in social systems, which is whenever we have a tool or technology to simplify our work, like GenAI, we immediately use this to tackle the maximal level of complexity we can manage. So this was true in the past. So when we invented the internet and web technologies, which led us to even more complex apps and products and services, yeah, we ended up that our daily workload is still the same. It hasn't become simpler or less complex since then. We just have created more complex products with our teams. So we will see the same with GenAI. So GenAI actually is widening the spread of control of a team. We will see new team setups which are closer to the customers and have more control over the value chain. But we still will have peers which are focusing, of course, on the more I have the wrong slide here, Genesis concept and emerging part, and teams are focusing typically on the custom build, the development part. When we talk in 3 about arenas, which is kind of this business department, but independent business department, which is necessary to scale up in the market. So scaling and is focusing on such kind of organizational units. And of course, the enterprise as its own is focusing on the complete evolution of product and services, and is delegating this work to arenas, teams, and pairs. We will stay with the patterns, but the how these teams are conducted will be completely different. as I said, we saw that already in the past, and I would try to explain it with this slide here by looking what was happening for teams or how teams has changed in the past. So the first programming languages like, for example, C or specialized languages like SQL made it possible to create actually software development teams, but they were focused on components like front-end, middleware, or databases. Sometimes we still have them in the market, but they're really disappearing. Anyway, so new technologies and methods like extreme programming or integrated dev environments finally makes it possible to have full stack teams, which is something which is industry standards, hopefully today. And even next step was then that, for example, cloud computing and the possibility to outsource many of these operational tasks to the stable commodity providers like AWS and so on was the foundations that we can or reorganize our teams into DevOps teams. And so why programming or agentic AI is the next leap forward, which again will change our team setups. And as we have no better name right now, we just call them AI enhanced teams. So these AI enhanced teams will be, for them, coding just a very small part of the daily work. And they may have even not coding specialists as part of the teams, but at least they, of course, need to utilize these new possibilities we have with agentic AI. So, but more importantly, when we look to teams, is that arenas and teams are actually the only advancing part in your organization. So when you create a strategy, it's just a concept, but making this strategy done, you need teams. So this is why the third strategic doctrine in AIM3 is overall optimization. First, because you need to connect your strategy loop, which is the, can we move this one here? You need to connect your strategy loop with the sprint or other cadences you have in your product development with your strategy. And in AIM3, we use here for that the enterprise backlog. So with the enterprise backlog, you focus the entire organization on your common strategy. The idea of the enterprise backlog is not to have a plan to manage the dependencies between arenas. The goals in the enterprise backlog create guidance for the different parts of your organization, regardless whether they are using Kanban or Scrum or other methods. But secondly, overall optimization means to develop the organization and the product and services at the same time in the same direction. This is a direct consequence of Conway's law, which states that an organization needs to stay flexible on the one hand, and on the other hand, product and services are always a mirror of the existing organization creating these products and services. So AIM3 as a whole is not just creating a basis for creating a strategy, it's also coming with a concrete understanding of a leadership system and also rules, which is helping you to assess, anticipate, and advance your strategy. We also have a lot an explanation how to interplay and integrate other methods like Scrum, of course, and Kanban and Worldly Map. You always saw that. And we also have playbooks how to start in your organization with AIM3. But this talk is not about aim 3 is more about strategy, and of course GenAI. And so I like to close this talk here with this statement or a quote from Gerald Weinberg. No matter how it looks at first, it always a people problem. And so GenAI is created by humans and is used by humans. So in the end, it's always a question of how we will use that in our business, enterprise, and society. So strategy is not made by AI. It is actually to advance with AI. And to that, thank you for listening, and I hope we get some interesting questions we can answer, and I hope we still somehow in time. I completely lose that. Just to summarize here a little bit. So it's safe to say that we can't say how our business will change because of GenAI in the future, but we can develop a strategy now. Remember that empirical control at enterprise level is the best safeguard you can have, and focusing on evolution first before you focus too much on agile and efficiency, which comes second. If you want to find us on LinkedIn, you find the links here, and of course you find more about aim3 at aim3.ai or .info, and you also will find the slide there. So thank you for listening, and hopefully we get some interaction with the group here in the crowd and can answer some questions.
Yeah, we got a first question. It's about I don't fully understand the intention behind focusing on evolution rather than agility or efficiency. What kind of evolution is being referred to here? Is it the evolution of generative AI itself, the evolution of the world or the market, or the evolution of the customer needs? And I think Pitt already gave the answer to the second part. It's of course about everything, and that makes it a little harder to understand. But when we want to run a business, we run a business in an economic ecosystem, which is also part of the global world system. So in a way, we need to regard everything. But of course, while we do this, we try to focus on areas of concern that we are kind of familiar with. So, and as Pitt said, agility, efficiency are pretty good attributes, but they are among many. So if you go into depth into the universal doctrine, you will see that there are some rules or some indicators of things that are helpful. So efficiency provides the space for innovation. So it's a good idea that teams or organizations should also focus on making some standard processes more efficient. Yeah, but there's no point on making new product development more efficient, because that's where we want to be more agile. You need to use the appropriate tools, and on what tools are appropriate depends on the evolutionary state. This is why it's important to have the systemic understanding of the whole map. Yeah? So it's like otherwise it would be like you don't have a map, you don't have a clue, you don't have directions, and you are hiking somewhere in the dark and you try to just walk faster. That probably wouldn't bring you anywhere. Yeah, you might get hurt. So, and we try to enlighten the dark. We want to have the map so that before we try to walk in any direction, we decide what is the best direction to go to and where do we get there in the fastest way or in the best possible way. And this is why we kind of start following Simon Wardley, the complexity science by David Snowden. We follow those approaches to get this understanding first, even if it's an understanding that there are many things that we don't know. And this mapping, for instance, helps us to identify our blank spots, at least the ones that we know yet. So, any other question? Well, there was a little statement about Nimawashi. So the importance of informal conversations. I already replied to this in Discord, and of course, this is something that you also need to regard when you work on a system like this. So that would be some kind of job of the system lead, for instance, to ensure that we not only have formal processes and feedback loops installed, but that also people just talk to each other.
Yeah, we didn't have
right.
time a lot to. Yeah? Sorry.
So I think that was a time box.
Was there something? Didn't miss that.
So I don't see more here. So we might ask the interpreters, do you have anything for us? We already can say hello to Chris. I think Chris Cooper is the next one here in the room. I think that we're done.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's always difficult to create
to read the room
in an online session, which is also mixed with a real room. I see people sitting there, but there seems to be focused on something else. Hopefully, they even could listen to us. I'm not sure.
各力集中公開尊敬勇気各力集中公開尊敬勇気各力集中公開尊敬勇気オラオラ